Hello and welcome to the Comic Conspiracy episode 263 for the week of May 31st, 2016. I'm back, baby. What did you people do to my podcast when I was gone?
In my defense, and I have backup on Twitter, I tried my best.
This is the Comic Conspiracy Rebirth. We'll try to get the last episode out of everyone's mind with this awesome episode. My name's Ryan Higgins, who's here with me this week.
Brock Sager.
Brian Ellison.
Toby.
Chris Noyes.
How's it going, everyone?
Good.
It's going.
I'm back from my European vacation. I wore some berets.
Hopefully it wasn't a European vacation.
I drove around a roundabout a bunch of times and couldn't get out of it. What else did they do in that movie? I don't know. It's a good movie. You ever see European Vacation?
Yeah. So you're saying there was a female you were attracted to the whole time that wasn't Leanne?
Yeah, it's his wife.
I was going to say.
Is that the part of the movie?
Yeah. It's in like every National Lampoon's Trip movie.
It's been so long since I've seen that movie.
The girl, he's like,
No, I'm back.
Welcome back.
Thank you, guys.
It's good to have you back.
While I was gone, I saw some cool comic book stories over in Europe. I sent Toby some pictures of some European comics that he misses and loves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just pictures? You didn't bring them back for him?
No.
He doesn't like me that much.
I do have Toby's present.
Yay.
Here, though. I picked him up something small, so I forgot. It's here. I'll give it to you after the podcast.
Sweet.
But
I didn't burn this thorn that.
Yeah. We are going to talk about Rebirth here properly.
I think it's funny that you're talking about Rebirth without Ryan Scott and Bryce here.
I don't know who those people are. We've rebirthed them out of memory. So no, we'll talk about that in a bit. But I wanted Brian to be on, and I know Brock and Toby are here because I was gone for 3 weeks, which is by far short of. I was gone for like a week and a half, almost 2 weeks.
You've never been gone for 3 weeks.
Not for that long.
This is the first time you've ever been gone this long.
Since you started working here.
Last time you were gone close to this was
nearly
when you
20
had your
years.
nasal surgery.
Yeah, and that was like I only missed like one solid like full week of release. Like I was gone for like 3 solid weeks. You guys ran the shop. Brian, you worked here part-time. We roped you into covering a few shifts here.
Yep.
At this point, Brian knows more than I do. Because you actually train him. See, when I show up, you just do it. I'm like, okay.
No, I can.
Brian actually gets a real training session. I'm like, wait, you know how to do that? I don't even know how to do that.
All you have to do is ask.
I do ask. He always goes, I fucking told you already.
I can attest. I saw Brian teaching Toby something when I came in on a Saturday. So.
Well, the funny thing was when I was training Brian on how to do stuff in the register, I don't know how to do any of this stuff, right? Because it's all muscle memory, right? I don't actually remember how to do it. If you ask me what's the command to do this on the register, I'm like, I don't know. Because it's...
Well, that's not what you tell me usually. You just press blah, blah, F5. That's it.
And when you ask me direct, I'm like...
It's not working.
I'm like, I actually don't know. Because, again, I don't have to think about it. I just do it, right? It's so much muscle memory. So it was actually interesting teaching Brian how to do everything from scratch because I had to really go through and like, oh, yeah.
Hey, you typed up your employee training manual, so just use it.
Yeah, really did.
There is a training manual now for the store. We're ready. We're good.
So, Brock, you and Toby ran the midnight sale for Rebirth while I was gone. How'd that go? Good?
Good. I mean, we had people come in early. Toby went out and got snacks and stuff for people to eat.
Yeah, we didn't need any more beer, by the way, Toby. We had plenty of beer in the back.
Nobody drank the beer. Like 2 people did.
I know. We didn't need more beer.
I only bought 2 packs of 6-packs.
We didn't need any more beer. We still had like 20 beers in the back. We didn't need more.
I called twice asking how many are to go there. It's a little box full. I'm like, okay, I don't know what that means.
Who did you ask?
Marshall. You were not even here.
Yeah, he's going to tell you it's a little box because he doesn't know it's a case.
Yeah, so I called twice, and there's no help whatsoever. You sent the one that can't walk, that has one leg, to get out all the food. I was very pissed off, actually.
I didn't send you. I just said, if you want to do it, go do it, or get Brock or someone
else. And then nobody ate the food. I think Al was the only one. Oh, there's food.
That sounds
just eat everything.
That sounds all right.
Al has no shame. I will just eat the food. Nobody wants it. More for me.
No, it went really well. We had a good turnout. Pictures are up online on Facebook. I think Jim posted some. Toby, I think he posted a couple too. I was bringing people up from midnight to like 12:45 straight. So
it was a good run of people. It was good, like 30-something, 40-something people maybe.
Everyone was.
There's a guy that went twice in line. I realized afterwards. I took a little time lapse of the line, and then I saw the guy. Wait a minute, he already went through once. He went through again.
Someone got 2 free copies of
bastard
Rebirth.
We got video proof. Who is this guy?
Yeah,
this guy out.
yeah. I'll show him to you.
Scumbag.
No, a lot of everyone was appreciative. Like we sold a ton of the midnight variant.
The variants,
You know, everyone was like said thank you for doing this and stuff like that. So yeah,
there's a lot of people excited about it, and like they had calls. They're like, "Wait, you're open? Really? You're doing it?" And they came down. We're like one of the few in the South.
We were the only
one in the South.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. There was one store in San Francisco. Us, no other store nearby.
Travis did in Santa Cruz.
Did he?
Yeah.
No, they're not in Santa Cruz. They're in Salinas.
Oh,
that's way further south.
way
Oh no, he did. That's right.
Yeah.
No. I didn't know that. Yeah, they're way further south.
yeah. And he sold
Couple
out
hours.
that night.
Seriously?
Yeah, he sold out that night. Yeah, he
Wow.
came in over the weekend. We had talked a little bit. So yeah.
Yeah, no, we did really well, and it sold.
That's
in
current
droves
comics, by the way.
Last week when we were almost sold out.
Yeah, we're almost out now.
We
So.
have no longer have any midnight release ones, and we're almost sold out of them.
I got a lead on some more copies, so hopefully we're going to get a few more.
It was a fun event.
Yeah.
And the store didn't burn down while.
Yeah.
You didn't run
That's
the show.
always good.
Yeah.
That's always good.
I was nice to Marshall and put all the books out. Holy crap! That week killed me. Toby periscoped it. Oh, it was painful.
That was a lot of books.
Yeah. Welcome to my every week.
It's not every week like that.
Yeah.
though.
I still don't feel sorry for you, buddy.
Welcome to a lot of my weeks.
I still don't feel sorry for you.
Well, Marvel has been renumbering a lot, so
Brian, you have not worked retail in
30 years.
longer than probably half the people listening to this podcast have been alive.
Yeah.
But thank you first of all for pitching in and filling in a few of those days and
Asking lots of questions and writing out the store manual.
Well, there was some interesting observations I had along the way. So, as Ryan says, I haven't worked retail for 30 years. Last time I worked was Tower Records in Campbell, which is no longer around. And I remember when I left, I said, I'm never going to work retail again. Because there's ups and downs to retail, and if anybody's ever seen Clerks, they have an idea sometimes what retail's like. But,
It's not that bad here.
No, in fact, it's a good point. When Ryan asked me, I've been coming to this store for 20 years approximately, and I know a lot of people here. And usually when people come to comic stores, they're having a good time, they're happy. And so I thought, hey, this could be interesting. This could be good. And I'm helping out a friend, and I was kind of touched by the fact that Ryan asked me to work here because I thought, like, wow, Ryan, I'm not part of his inner circle. I mean, we're friends here. I mean, we do movies occasionally outside of the store. So I'm thinking, hey, you know what, Ryan? This guy, he trusts me, he respects me, he thinks I'm going to do a good job.
It just says
You have an
about
open-
his own friends.
But then I came to find
says
out
a lot about his own friends when he goes to the
But
outer
then I find
circle.
out that he only wanted me for my truck.
Yep.
No. No.
What?
Yeah.
It's for your truck and your open schedule.
Ryan had a plan.
Yeah, so I was my soul was kind of crushed on that. But,
No.
Truth comes out.
It was a soul-crushing moment when I discovered this. But,
Trust me, of all the people I know that don't work, you are by far the best, the most trustworthy.
I'm sorry I had to break that news to you, though.
Yes. It's all about my truck and my open schedule.
No.
Because like the first week, Brian's like, "Why did Ryan really do this?" I'm like, "It's because you have a truck." And you looked at me like, "What?" And I'm like, "I have a truck, but I work. I can't go pick up the books. You have a truck." And you were like, "Oh, that sucks." I'm like, "Yeah, but you also can do it, and he trusts you." And you're like, oh, "Okay."
Trust me, I know other people with trucks that I would also not ask to do this. So no,
The other thing the other observation that's kind of there's like two other observations I would say. One is that Comics Conspiracy is
You didn't realize you have a psychology degree?
well, no, it's like Game of Thrones. So
No spoilers. He hasn't seen the last two episodes.
So I'm just doing an analogy. I mean, it's not like Comics Conspiracy's King's Landing. It's not big enough or
So we're all trying to slay down
powerful
Ryan?
enough. Well, no. So I'm going to say that Comics Conspiracy is like Winterfell, right? So Ryan's king and warden of the South Bay, right? And so you have the various houses. There's House Toby, House Brock, House Marshall, House Charlie, and they've all ostensibly sworn loyalty to House Ryan. But the warden left for 3 weeks, and so you have this.
Take that fucker down.
Yeah, so I come into it as a free agent. I don't belong to any house, and so I'm just kind of watching what these guys do.
Littlefinger, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
The sellsword.
Yeah,
Braun.
So I'm watching these houses all compete, and it's interesting is because sometimes they do what Ryan wants, and sometimes they don't do what Ryan wants. So it's kind of fun. And since Winterfell was open there for a bit, I think Brock had his inner Theon Greyjoy. I think he tried to fill the vacuum for a little while, and
try is the key word.
Yeah, but in his defense, he didn't kill any customers or behead any customers or burn any children.
Well,
that you know of.
The rage-inducing customer didn't come in at all, so I was happy about that.
But the Warden of the North is now back, and
I didn't get my head chopped off.
That's right,
Winterfell.
yeah.
I was actually at Winterfell, and I survived.
Yeah. So it's all good. But the other thing I thought was interesting was if anybody comes in the store, they know that Ryan is doing 1,001 things. He's selling stuff. He's talking to customers. He's on Facebook. He's answering email. He does it all very, very well. I couldn't do half the stuff without blowing a circuit. So I'm always impressed by that. But there are times when I'm talking to Ryan that he does this. Yeah, he does this exactly. He does this. He does this little thing where he turns away from you. He's kind of listening, but he's not listening. And it's almost Zen-like. It's like listening without listening. And
Ryan has mastered that.
But he does it in such a way that it's not offensive. You're not offended, but you're like, well, gee, I'm talking here, Ryan. And he's like,
I'm listening.
Yeah.
Oh, you should
so it's there. But once I was behind the counter, oh my God, I completely understand. Because I'm not even doing half the stuff that he's doing, and like people are talking at me.
Because you're working, right?
Right.
Like,
things are going down wrong, and I'm like, So it's like so that taught me a lesson in humility.
there were moments where I'm like, emails all checked, nothing on Twitter, books are all sorted. I can actually turn and have a conversation with someone. I finally have a moment.
No, what's
to
funny
that I say,
Well, and I turn back.
He does this on Tuesdays sometimes. He'll get everything finished, and then he'll just sit there for a second, like stunned.
It's
and
like
then he'll
5
start
minutes
talking to me like there's like blah, 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 blah.
Well, it's
I'm
like 5 minutes before closing, and I'm like, okay, I have 5 minutes to breathe. Like today, I'm so far behind on my schedule.
Have you witnessed him on the phone with his? Okay.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you can understand it. I mean, that's the thing. It's hard because everybody's asking you questions about movies and comics, and you're trying to do your job, and you're not trying to be rude. But at some point, you do find yourself going,
You also have the same conversations with 5 people throughout the day. Over and over. Yeah.
I can't remember if I mentioned this on the podcast before I left, but I have caught myself, and I'm trying to stop it, where when people are talking to me, I reply, and then I continue the conversation because I know exactly what they're going to say. Yeah. And so I start answering
the next question.
The next thing they haven't even asked me, or the next statement they haven't even made, because there's always like only 2 or 3 paths that people go, right, in these conversations. Guy was in here earlier talking about Batman v Superman. It's the second...
You're let me put it down. Boom, 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 boom. You got it? And the guy is just, what?
Right.
What just happened?
I said I liked it. He gave me a look, and then I was like, and here's the spiel, right? Because I'm going to answer everything that you don't like. But then I got to the end, and I'm like, I need to, like, I actively am trying to catch myself when I do that, because I don't want to, even though it is always the same conversation, I don't want to assume it's the same conversation. I don't want to come off like I'm just being an asshole to people, and I really don't mean for it to ever happen. But it's like I know. I'm like a precog. I know exactly how this conversation's going to go.
You had it like
right?
16 times that day.
Yeah.
Well, I've been telling you for years that you should record. When you have events or movies, you just make a recording and post it up on the TV, and it just plays on an endless loop, so people can look at the TV when they come in.
Are we on a podcast that we talk about stuff?
Yeah, and then I have to do it here. So by the time I get to the podcast, I'm like, either the podcast is... I've perfected my statement already, so I can go right into it, or the podcast is sort of like my first attempt at it, because Wednesday is the big day when I talk to people. So usually by Wednesday I have it all sorted out.
Plus you got Geekbox as well.
Right.
Go over it too.
But you also...
That's why you're always so grumpled by the time you do this podcast, because you already had the conversations.
No, he's grumpy because he's been up so early and
that too.
He's had a long day. No, the opposite to that is when you engage in people and you go... and you wait for a response.
Yeah.
Those are the best.
Well, because
when it's like, Hi, do you need help with anything?
Just answer me.
There's nothing. Like, they could be staring at you and there's nothing.
Yeah, I get that sometimes.
Now you're feeling good though, right, Ryan?
Oh, yeah,
Because
yeah,
consensus
feeling
was
good,
that
yeah.
you'd get sick when you got back.
Yes.
Well, I've
You're going to
been
be in the hospital by the time you're back.
both me and Leanne have been fighting horrible allergies.
See?
The last,
Well, allergies, not
the last
Yeah.
couple weeks, allergies are killing both of us. So
Well,
I've been fighting
European allergies?
It's real bad.
It's that different.
You're like a
hemisphere.
Frenchman.
really bad. The last few weeks have been real bad.
You know, you
but
changed hemispheres, so there's.
Well,
you know.
I apologize to our French listening audience too, by the way, for Toby.
I'll on the Ryan's been.
Hey, I'm a neighbor.
Ryan and Justin, if you listen to the Geekbox, Ryan Scott and Justin Haywald, they've been having a lot of E3 stuff going on. Adam's been really sick, so they've actually skipped a couple episodes recently. I was hoping to do one last night because I wanted to talk about the honeymoon more. But next week I'll talk more about that. So if you want to hear more of my adventures,
Why don't you just talk about it here?
well, I can. But I'll go on for.
We got a rebirth.
I got to talk about Rebirth.
Rebirth. He's got to
Who cares
undo
about
what you
Rebirth?
guys
I
all
want to
did.
hear about your honeymoon. I like the
what do you wanna
modern,
hear?
all the modern art you were seeing that you thought
did.
were fantastic.
I
Like the
did.
blue painting that's blue. Worth $2 million.
I'm so glad I know people who also find that shit super irritating.
Yeah.
Okay,
or,
well,
or
let's
the pile of dirt that you found.
I won't go on about this forever because I do
Yeah.
want to talk comic books here.
I do want to hear about your Game of Thrones thing
But
and
for-
a Doctor Who experience
I'll go-
because I know you did that,
There's
right?
no
Because you're a
Doctor Who
cool
stuff.
person.
No Doctor
You
Who
never
stuff.
mind, you're dead to me.
I'll go through a few big things. I went to Game of Thrones tour. Took us to Northern Ireland.
Yes.
Went to Winterfell. Went to which is
Did you have to kill those wolves before you go up to the
Winterfell is
thing?
actually it's nothing like what it looks like.
Well,
They put
the set isn't dressed.
well,
That's the thing
it's not only that,
it's
but
pretty
the,
bare.
Well,
but
they add a lot of digital shit.
a
in there.
lot, yeah. So it's like it's a kind of touristy location already. So it's nothing. I mean, you would never guess.
So
we were
those
there.
wolves you were wearing, did they just give them to you? Did you have to hunt something?
No, they gave us like these like cloaks to wear around. And
You didn't
stuff,
even have
which
to
is
hunt
pretty good.
anything?
No. If we wanted to, we went up to one of the twins. What's the guy? The red wedding guy?
Walder Frey?
Walder Frey's
Frey.
twins.
Yeah, the twins.
And that thing was cool. Like that. I mean, you couldn't really get into it, but all the area around it, where Jon Snow, his whole camp area. I mean, it's like, yeah, this is exactly it.
Nice.
And they showed you all kind of clips of where you were and everything, and where it related to the books and or to the show.
So it was timed? It wasn't like you just hang out.
I mean, you had to take a bus there. I mean, the thing was all day. It was like 12 hours or something like
Nice.
that. So, yeah, Leanne got
But you
super...
couldn't like sit on a rock pretend you're like one of the knights and go, fuck you all, I'm gonna just sit here and
I mean,
pretend.
you could, but then you'd be left behind. We actually left a guy behind.
Really?
And his friend was like, wait, my friend's not here. And we had to stop. Like, we didn't get that far out, but,
Yeah.
like, they're like, yep, we have to go, like, on to the next place. So, it was really cool. Totally worth it if you love Game of Thrones. London, awesome city. Saw Manic Street Preachers play at the Royal Albert Hall, the most amazing music venue of all time. If you ever get a chance to go there, legendary place.
Do you know how many holes it takes to fill the Albert Hall?
I no. What?
Okay. Beatles reference for you youngsters out there.
Yeah, there you go. I did actually go back Dublin real quick. I did go to Big Bang Comics run by
I
John and
listened to
Bruno.
your podcast, expecting more out of it, but they just made it so short. I was like,
Because it was 3:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
We recorded that.
After a lot of
I recorded a podcast at 3:00 in the morning.
I really wanted that to go on for hours and
Why
hours.
three?
at an Irish punk bar.
Yeah.
Because it's the guy on the bar, and he
That's
records
awesome.
this like geeky podcast whenever he
I
feels
love
like
the
it.
podcast.
Yeah, and
I really did.
The bathroom is all full of like ripped up comic book pages.
Oh,
like,
is that
pasting
place?
the
Okay,
wall and
okay.
stuff.
that's also the one that has the two spouts on the sink.
The
What was that weird sink?
weird sink.
Yeah, it had like two spouts or something.
I don't know. There was like the men's
picture
everywhere in Europe. The men's and women's bathrooms are just like together.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
nobody
yeah.
cares.
Yeah, yeah.
Like so for all this like bathroom wars we're having in America right now.
Yeah.
They figured this
They
out.
broke down the wall?
200 years ago in Europe.
They
Nobody
broke down
cares.
the wall?
When I was in Versailles. We went to Versailles, which is Louis XIV's palace outside London or outside Paris. And when I went to the men's restroom, there were like 18, like 80-year-old Chinese women just using all the men's stalls, and we're like, all right, like what are you gonna do? So
Peon,
So-
establish your dominance.
yeah, there's just my. But I did go to Big Bang, most amazing store. John and Bruno, the guys who are in that store, just incredible. If you're ever in Dublin, you have to go there. The Little South, beautiful area, beautiful store. Puts ours to shame. Incredibly nice guys. I did go to a couple stores in London. Went to one of the big. It's called. I'm trying to blank on the name of the store now. It was in Paris. It was like one of the few American comic book stores, but they have the European one across the street, which is all the local stuff.
Yeah.
And that was where I was sending you those pictures from too.
Those are some nice hardcovers, man.
Real nice stores.
Yeah.
When
real
I was
nice.
in Paris a few years ago, we stopped at randomly just stumbled across.
Album Comics, it's called. They have 2 stores. Yeah.
We randomly stumbled across a comic book store and we went in. It was all English stuff, so maybe it was the same one. But.
So they have what they have over there.
Well, you showed me the English stuff. You didn't show me the European stuff, actually.
I thought I sent you. I sent you.
She sent me the American stuff, and it was all like nice hardcovers. They're all the same size.
Well, those are all in French. Those are all French.
They're all in the same size, and they're all like perfectly matched. I'm like,
Europe gets it. Europe gets it. America doesn't.
The Marvel trades, they actually didn't have that many that were in French. The DC had like everything, and it was basically like Identity Crisis to current, and every trade was in order, black spine, just like awesome design, crossovers. It's like your perfect binding project in a collected format. So just all the crossovers were just in order. It would be like Infinite Crisis 1, Infinite Crisis 2, Infinite Crisis 3, with all the crossovers in chronological order.
It's so simple.
Super nice collections. Absolutely gorgeous.
I want that so badly.
I
If it
wish
was
we had
only
it.
in English.
And they were like
some people in France and say, what's
there were
the
like
mapping of that?
12 to 15 issues a piece, and they were like €30. Like totally,
perfect.
Totally reasonable.
It's perfect.
Decent paper?
Yeah, perfect. I mean, yeah, real good, real glossy paper, everything.
We're missing out.
Yeah, we are real bad. How can we not have something that good here and they get them there? And they probably don't sell it
because
they get them a little later. From what I hear, they get them a lot later. Like I was talking to, I think it was Dustin, because the little Gotham has different art. Like some of the books have different covers and stuff like that, and they're saying they spend a lot more time on it before they release it, so it comes up a little later.
Well, right. These all look fairly recent, so I feel like it's a new project. Because I know, like Panini, they're the ones that do a lot of the Marvel stuff, so those collections were out there, but it's very spotty what they had. DC seemed a little more complete.
I mean, at least that's the same.
But yeah. Great stores, Album Comics. Real quick. Also, I saw Venus de Milo, Mona Lisa, all these big paintings. It's
beautiful art, right?
A nightmare to get anywhere near them. You can't get 20 feet from the Mona Lisa. But
you got pretty close, though, no?
I mean,
how big is the Mona Lisa?
Tiny, size of your head.
Yeah, I always thought it was large.
No, real small.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Maybe
a little bit
2
bigger
feet,
than
maybe
8.5 by 11 piece of paper.
A little bit bigger than that. Than that. Real small, and you can't get anywhere near it. There was like almost a riot in front of it. They were like pulling people out, and
if you've ever seen, if you just Google pictures of like
like reality versus
separate room. And the room's maybe 20 by 20 feet, and
it's in a big room. Really? Now it's
I thought
it used to be. I think now it's in a bigger room, but it's a huge room, so no one's looking at anything else. Everyone's just funneling into the Mona Lisa.
Well, it's also. Well, maybe it's different now, but isn't it in its own by itself?
It's by itself. Yeah.
So everyone's in there for that, and so
there's other stuff in that room.
So you know what this means, right?
What's that?
The loo needs doom buggies.
The loo, you just sitting in and
then
go
it stops
by
for a moment, and then it goes, and then it stops for a moment, and then goes.
Let me ask you this, Ryan. Yeah. When I was in New York and I was going to museums there, I always thought it was strange and somewhat odd that people were always taking selfies of themselves with various artwork or taking a lot of pictures and not really looking at the artwork.
So Leanne had already seen all these because she'd been there before. So with her, she was kind of going back and taking pictures of a lot of stuff for reference. She's an artist, so it makes sense. At the Mona Lisa, there was maybe 200 people when I was there trying to all push up to the front. And every single one of them had a phone or camera in the sky, clicking, and then they would just kind of get to the front and just veer off, right?
Yeah.
There was myself, there was a guy from Australia next to me, and there was like a couple people like off to the side. And we were actively like, we want to get to the front as close as we can, look at it for a minute, take it in, take a nice picture, and then go aside. And everyone else is just like, blah, blah, Mona Lisa, click, click, click. And it's like...
But why do you need a picture of the Mona Lisa?
It's right, exactly. I mean, I am here. I am here.
Well, exactly. It's like it's not real unless you have a picture of it while you're
it's
there.
It's like how Ryan posted about it. He was like, achievement unlocked.
Yeah, I'm not trying to hack on you. I just find it interesting that in today's environment, unless you have a picture of yourself in whatever you're doing,
right,
it's not real.
Right.
Like somehow in the past, when you would just take in the site, maybe write it in a journal.
Well, this is
today. You got to take pictures of yourself there.
This is the fight me and Leanne have when we go to museums, because for her, especially for art, she took art history. She knows this stuff. She's looking at the visual of it. For me, I look at this thing and I'm like, I have no idea what this is, what the context is, who drew it, who painted it.
What are these pair of glasses on the floor?
Well, I don't know anything about this, so I want to actually read this stuff. And for her, she's just like, it's a thing. Okay, acknowledge. She's going piece by piece.
Well, she's going over it from her art background,
right.
And because a lot of those pieces, you're looking at like the colors that they use and the brush strokes and there's a lot of intricate detail that goes into
for her, that's more why.
But that's why a journal would be interesting, or taking notes, right? So you're looking at something, you're taking notes, but taking pictures just fascinates me, because if you want to look at it, you can go online and look at it.
See better pictures than what
see
you're
way
have.
better pictures, right? But if you're taking notes, like this, because you can see something straight up and it's in person, it makes sense. But I was always amazed by the amount of people with their cameras. I mean, they were just everywhere.
Well, again,
and I just felt like you're missing the beauty. It's like you can't see it unless you see it through your camera. And I just thought that was fascinating.
My joke that Toby mentioned is what people actually say. So in video games, when you complete a task, you get an achievement, and that achievement is unlocked. So achievement unlocked is like a joke, right?
Out of his life game.
Yeah.
Right. So in the game of life, I saw the Mona Lisa in person. Achievement unlocked, right?
Achievement unlocked.
So that's when I put up I think it was like Winged Victory and Vitas de Milo. I was like, art platinumed. Platinum is when you complete a game entirely.
Well, and the thing is seeing your pictures over the weeks and stuff like that. It was nice to see pictures of just you and Leanne that wasn't you taking the picture. Right, it was like you gave somebody the camera to take. Those are
all selfie picture mode now. But it was seeing all this. I mean, it was tiring. It was exhausting.
I'm still waiting on the story of the pile of dirt.
So
I'm patiently waiting for that.
We went to numerous art gallery. We went to the Louvre and went to the d'Orsay and went to the London Museum. We went to the National Gallery. I mean, the National Gallery. It's like where they where the British raped and pillaged like the entirety of Egypt and Greece, right? I mean, it threw it in a lot.
I just see a map of all these places on a video game screen. And it's like when Ryan's avatar is just walking.
Well, you're walking through these things and you're like, okay, fine. 2,000-year-old. Let's just go to the next thing, please. There's so much of this. It's like it's total overload. You could spend weeks in the Louvre and never see the same thing twice. But we hit up a few modern art galleries, and to keep this kind of comic related, to talk about art here. Modern art is a giant load of bullshit. Okay?
Yeah.
So we went to the Tate Modern. We went through that in 15 minutes. I was like, Andy Warhol, okay, cool. The rest of this is absolute garbage. And we went to one of the big ones in Paris. There was the modern art, and it was like the blue painting. That thing is super famous. It's just blue paint.
Yeah,
it's just solid blue. And you're like, what? The giant chunk of dirt, Toby, what that was I don't know. I don't remember what country. I took a picture of it. I'll have to go back and look. But a country that I believe joined the European Union is a smaller country, and that's why I'm not remembering what country I said it was. This was all their debt papers that the guy got somehow when they joined the union, and he shredded them all and threw them into a room, and that's art.
Yeah,
that's
New York,
awesome.
In New York, the Museum of Modern Art, they have a giant white wall. It literally is a white wall, and in big black letters on top, it says, "Wall pitted by a single air rifle shot." And so I'm like, okay. And I'm looking at it, it's like, I guess I'm supposed to find the pellet.
The one little hole or something?
Yeah. And I'm thinking, this is art?
Yeah.
Well, all I'm thinking
we're
of
in the wrong business.
Kingpin and Daredevil just staring at that that nothing painting. It looks like...
modern art's interesting because you go and I'm seeing all this stuff from the Renaissance, and you're seeing these very crude religious paintings from like the 1200s and 1300s, and it's like you see this transition, and then we got into the 1800s, 1900s, where you get a lot of the realism and surrealism, and things start to get different, and you know, like, I could see this progression. You know, like Monet. Monet is one of those. You stand up close and it's just gibberish, but if you pull back yeah. You see like, oh my god, this all pops, and you could see the water, you could see everything. But it's like people for modern art just got into like, well, we'll never do this, so we have to come up with some bullshit reason why this piece of crap drawing is actually important. And we figured out the less art that was actually made, the longer the name of it was. Like, it would be some horribly pretentious bullshit name that was like...
Dude, I'm so gonna get duck fart.
12, 13 words long, and it's just like a red scratch on a piece of board.
And it's $4 million.
Yeah.
Sure. And then you go to the Louvre,
Duck
and it's like woman sitting, and it's this like 20 by 20 foot gorgeous painting that took this guy probably a decade to paint, and it's just like woman sitting, right? like it just it's crazy. It's so funny.
Did you do Big Ben and the Eye of London?
All
and
the touristy stuff. Yeah. I mean, we didn't go up to Big Ben, but we went to it. You can only actually tour it if you're a citizen. I guess.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So there's some of that.
It's also, I think they stopped it.
It's only certain
they're refurbishing
times.
It.
Yeah. So we went like Westminster Abbey and looked outside all that, and yeah, we did a lot of tour. All the big touristy
you
stuff.
did the Eye? Did you do the Eye?
Yeah, the Eye's pretty fun. Yeah, you can see a lot of stuff. We did Eiffel Tower, and you know it's you know.
And then you were at Disney.
We did that. That was an interesting experience.
It's funny because I went to when they flat out opened. Like brand spanking new. Like barely, like all hotels were brand new. I stayed in a Western themed one because I liked cowboys at the time.
Yeah.
My sister was, I think, like 5 years old at the time. So yeah, it was an interesting experience. Like everything was brand spanking new.
Yeah.
They barely just opened it.
Well, they haven't touched anything since.
Yeah, that's from what I hear. It sounds like, yeah.
I went to one in the Armageddon experience. That was great. That classic, that timely movie Armageddon. We got to go through there because they had all their special effects. That was pretty funny.
How is that Disney related?
It's their like off. I have no idea how.
Wait, that was at Euro Disney?
Yeah. Oh. That's at the. They have like a Universal Studios type park next door with a bunch of. We went on the Ratatouille ride, which is incredible. Even though I don't like 3D.
That definitely did not exist when I was there.
Yeah, no, that's a new one. Disney Paris is interesting. It's Disneyland in California has like 70 some odd attractions, and it's only a little bit bigger than Disneyland Europe. Disneyland Europe has like 17 attractions.
Wait, there's another Disneyland in Europe?
Well, Paris.
Oh, you're coming which one to which one right now? The LA one?
Disneyland America versus Disneyland Paris. It's like
the original versus Paris.
Honestly, the only thing I remember was the hotel because I thought I was actually in some kind of American, like, old school Western town because they actually made it and all the gravel is on the ground and stuff. I thought that was really cool. And the other thing I remember was the parade. Beyond that, I don't really remember one thing. Yeah, I think I remember like the train I had to go on to get there, and that was about it.
Yeah, we went on like Phantom Manor, which is their Haunted Mansion, which is really cool, really really cool. The one time it worked, it was broke down every other time we tried to go.
So kind of like Indiana Jones at Disneyland.
Yeah. Their version of Pirates is pretty awesome too.
It's in reverse, right?
Yeah. Well, it's. In theory, it's how it should be.
Oh, okay.
But it's it makes more sense that way.
Okay.
But yeah, that's really cool.
Did you see the videos of the Singapore Disneyland with their Pirates tour?
That's amazing.
Dude, it looks freaking fantastic. Or the Tron ride. Oh my god.
Toby, I'll let you answer this question. Maybe you can. So we tried to be as good American tourists as we possibly could.
Oh, you're hated.
We definitely
is that it?
We definitely came across.
You mean you were rude to everybody?
Well, we definitely came across a couple bad American tourists. Let's say that.
Yeah.
But not to start a war with Europe, but the vast majority of Americans we ran across were actually totally fine. All the British were fine. The French were mostly fine. There are.
Are you going to talk about the Swiss now?
If I saw any Swiss, I didn't realize it. There are various European countries whose tourists are, let's say, the worst people that have ever existed, and just leave it at that.
Okay.
There's like 4 or 5 countries that, let's just say I was warned about a couple of them, and a couple caught me by surprise, and they're pretty much the worst people that have ever existed. So,
okay.
So maybe
is there a question?
Western
did
Europe
you want me to
or
guess
Eastern
Did you
Europe?
want me to guess which countries there were? Is that the game?
Can you guess a top 2, perhaps? I mean, it was bad. Like Disney, it was bad in Versailles.
I'm gonna get killed by naming things.
It was bad in Disneyland. Real bad in Disneyland.
I already know the answer. So
so there was some real bad ones. We'll talk off the air. Maybe in the Geek Box. Maybe in the Geek Box, I'll talk about this more. But amazing experience. Really good. Like I said, I'll talk.
Yes, and this experience was
the podcast
made you miss Rebirth.
I did. I missed Rebirth. So. What the hell did you people do to my podcast while I was gone?
Didn't. I tried. All right, I tried.
We made it better.
I tried my best.
We made it more entertaining. We made it better.
Look, if you listen to last week's podcast,
we have more comments about last week's podcast than we ever did on any freaking episode.
A lot of bad comments.
Yeah.
Who cares? People are having fun.
If shutting it off 20 minutes in is fun, then I guess that's one way of putting it.
Hey.
You guys remember DC Comics, DC Universe Rebirth from by Jeff Johns, 80 pages, $2.99, came out last Wednesday. I was very sad that this came out while I was gone, although I was very happy to be on my honeymoon. I did actually break down and buy it digitally, so I didn't get to read it while I was over there.
Well, at least you supported yourself.
I did. Toby, I don't know, did you have a chance to go back and reread it or anything?
No, I tried to do on Saturday when I was here. I actually tried to read both Captain America and the Rebirth.
Yeah.
But I had people come in, and it was conversations about Rebirth,
okay.
So I was really trying to reread it, but it was not happening. It was either Captain America Rebirth conversations.
I need you to reread
Chris had posted the 20-thing article, which was really informative, so I read over that, and I reread it today.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, I kind of just wanted to... give you
set the record straight per your head.
Let's say rebirth this podcast a little bit and fix some of this from last night or from last week. So Bryce actually, look, if you've been listening to this podcast, you know who Bryce is. You know Bryce is going to hate it because it's a DC comic. It doesn't matter what it is. Ryan, I like Ryan. If you listen to the Geek Box, you'll hear me constantly make fun of Ryan's opinions about stuff because he tends to be like very much like. There's only one way this can exist.
That's what he does.
It must exist in this fashion. I won't accept any variation from this.
This block doesn't fit into this shape.
Yeah, this like arbitrary position I've taken. It must always fit in this. These guys are my friends, so I'm not going to.
Star, circle.
But if you've listened to these podcasts, you understand how we all are, and you understand that I'm also paid by DC to never say anything bad about them. So I will continue that trend by talking about how much I love DC.
How do I get on this bandwagon?
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Thanks.
So let's talk about Rebirth here. And Brian, I know you liked it.
Yeah,
you read it.
Yes,
and you liked it. And Chris,
I enjoyed it.
You were a little confused, but I think you've got some questions and you've got some comments you want to make. So let me. If
I like how you left me out. He was like, you liked it. You liked it.
I know what you think.
We weren't on the podcast.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
All right. I got you.
So let me give a brief overview of what I think of this book, and then Brian and Chris, I want to get your opinions. And obviously,
let me start it for you. It's the greatest thing I ever read.
You're not far off. So let me go over this real quick. When New 52 started, I really liked it. There was a lot I really liked. I did miss some of the relationships and some of the history, but I thought the books that were the best books outweighed a lot of the losses that we had. As time went on, I kind of felt that maybe I wanted some of that stuff back. And I think DC as a whole did too, because we wouldn't have had Rebirth if they didn't want this stuff back. So DC positions themselves strangely with New 52, where their sales were kind of slumping. They had sort of written themselves into a weird corner. I think they tried something really brave with New 52. It just didn't click. And I'm happy when a company is willing to admit they kind of messed up. Look for Marvel to do that by the year end. Because
Marvel's now announced?
Right, yeah. So as on the eve of Rebirth, Marvel announced yet another reboot of all their books, or relaunch of all their titles.
More new number ones. Can't wait.
It's
Marvel Now.
Marvel Now
part
again. It's Marvel Now.
.1,
which they
.2,
already did.
.3,
Marvel Now again, Wolverine.
Yeah.
Marvel Now again.
I don't know whatever they're put after the decimal. We'll figure it out.
So the genius of Jeff Johns and Rebirth is what he always does with these books is that he takes something, makes it, acknowledges all the problems, and with a story fixes it. Doesn't just relaunch, doesn't just change it to change it. He says, look, we're going to give you a reason why Hal Jordan became an asshole called Parallax, right? We're going to give you a reason why.
And I agree that was phenomenal.
It was. Why Barry Allen's been gone. We're going to change his backstory, but actually give a reason behind why these changes existed. Too. So with Rebirth, this whole, New 52 was not a reboot, and it never was. This is acknowledging that the regular books to Flashpoint to now is still the same characters, right? Despite New 52 clearly being a reboot, Johns geniusly figured out a way to make it, to unreboot the New 52, to make it a continuation of the classic characters we know, with this idea that a decade has been stolen from the DC universe. And that's the core kind of concept in Rebirth of how things could change so drastically but still be the same. That's because physically a piece of time has been taken, everyone got de-aged, these guys are much younger, the relationships haven't formed, and now we're on the road to rebuild that lost time. And again, they could have just said, we're just going to go back to everything, but that would have left anyone that actually enjoyed the New 52 and bought these books in the last 5 years, that would have been like a big middle finger to them, because I did enjoy a lot of the New 52 stuff. But I agree, I'd like a lot of these things back. So, to Bryce and Ryan, my problem is this book is not really for them. Ryan Scott made the mistake of saying that this is supposed to be like a new jumping on point or for new readers, and that's totally, I believe, totally untrue. Marvel and DC are both finding that new readers that want simple stories are going to go read independent comics, they're going to read webcomics, they're going to read Tumblr. I mean, they're not going to buy superhero comics. People buy superhero comics because it's balls crazy superhero stuff, right? Nobody isn't seeing Civil War because it's the 13th movie in a series, right? People want this stuff. I mention this all the time. Very few people's first comic was the first appearance of a character. Spawn may be the kind of one of those rare cases, maybe Miss Marvel now, or the more recent Batgirl. Examples where a new character is a good jumping on for a lot of people. But for most people that read superhero comics, their first issue was X-Men 175, or Superman 330, or Cyborg number 7. But it's so few people start from issue number 1. At the end of the day, the legacy, the history of DC is why people want to read DC. I'm not saying new readers can't get into this stuff, but this is for lapsed readers and people that like the crazy shit that goes on in superhero comics.
After reading it and stuff and talking about it to people, it's not necessarily for new readers, but it's for curious people. It's for relapse. But it's also for people who are curious about things. Like they are, what is this?
Well, I think the problem with a lot of the stories that are done now, it's beginning, middle, end. And the genius of comic books, of the superhero comics, is that you can have stories that go on for years, decades, 50 years, right? I mean, story arcs and relationships that span a long time. So the mystery of this book is amazing, and that'll definitely get more people to read it. But just bringing the DC universe back to a slightly lighter place, because it appears that the Rebirth books are going to be much lighter than the New 52, but also bringing what superhero comics do what nothing else can. There's a shared continuity by hundreds of creators across dozens of titles featuring thousands of characters. No other medium does this. We're the only ones. Nothing else can touch this. And so Marvel and DC have been trying to get away from that, and if Marvel and DC were selling hundreds of thousands of copies of all these self-contained, new reader-friendly titles, then I'd say yes, you succeeded. When Miss Marvel started, when Batgirl started, I figured we were on a path for something. We were going to get a ton of new readers. Unfortunately, it starts and stops there because everything else failed miserably, right? Marvel's sales are circling the toilets on 90% of their books that are alternative, quirky.
Marvel needs to just get back to basic.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
right.
Just forget the nows, forget the now twos and
right.
nows and
right. I actually want Marvel then more than I want Marvel now.
Yeah.
Because Marvel now is a piece of shit. Yeah. Most of these books that Marvel is publishing, just like the New 52, are not
where I'm even supposed to be reading.
Are not quality. I don't care.
Well, you kind of get that with the movies. I mean, Marvel's movie cinematic universe is kind of capturing that old style of
Marvel more so than the comics.
Well, and I mean, you have big titles like Amazing Spider-Man and their Avengers. Just numbers are dropping
across the board on everything, and again, I have no problem with new characters. I have no problem with diverse characters. I'm fine with it, but the legacy, the history, especially DC, is what makes their comic books so great. So, DC Universe Rebirth #1 is not for the kid coming off the street that's never read a comic book before. I'm not saying he can't enjoy it, but that's not who this is aimed at. This is aimed at the lapsed fan, the reader that New 52 pushed off. It's aimed at getting back a bit of a classic audience who, contrary to popular belief, is the major part of the industry. They're the people buying stuff. It's nice that 60,000 people read Miss Marvel, but that's 60,000 people. That's not an industry, right? That's one mid-level title across the board. I don't want that book to not exist. I want them to always do like what DC is coming up with. Young Animal, their Gerard Way's run, take on Vertigo, where there's going to be a new Doom Patrol and Shade the Changing Man. Like, I am so excited for that, and they're going to sell 20,000 copies, and they're all going to be canceled after 12 issues. But I don't care because that's cool. But I want Superman and Batman and the Justice League and Wonder Woman to be their normal selves for the most part during this. Because we've had a time where Superman wasn't Superman, Batman wasn't Batman, the Avengers don't exist, Thor doesn't exist, Wolverine doesn't exist, Captain America doesn't exist. None of the classic characters in either company were around, and that's mind-boggling that they would both do the same thing at the same time. And no wonder why sales plummeted.
I really dislike that stuff. I also really disliked when they started merging characters with flip-flopping.
Yeah.
Like Uncanny Avengers, I never understood that. Or like when Hercules was Incredible.
Yeah.
I was like, why? It was like, it didn't make any sense to me at all. I mean, it just made me really dislike comic books for a long time. So, some of the points, again, if you don't want to be spoiled by Rebirth, or if you don't know, you may want to skip ahead of this. But
if you don't know by now, to counter
a couple of the comments, and then Brian and Chris, I want to get your take on some of this. On some of the comments that Ryan and Bryce, and I do want to say these guys are my friends. I'm not trying to I'm not bashing these guys. I'm trying to rebuttal their. I would have been rebuttaling their entire conversation had I been here. But I want to make for people that may feel the same way as them, I want to kind of address a few of their comments. The idea that Wally during this book is choosing to go to these random characters like Johnny Thunder before going to his wife, Linda Park. It's just not true. He can't control where he's going. He's sort of being dragged along the Speed Force, coming out occasionally to talk to people. In the case of Johnny Thunder, which is the one that I think a lot of people have a question about, again, if you don't know who Johnny Thunder is, you wouldn't know this. You may wonder, why does he stop to talk to this weird old guy? Johnny Thunder in the Thunderbolt is among the most powerful characters in the DC universe. The Thunderbolt is a genie. He can literally wish away the entire New 52 if he wanted to, right? So the fact that he would stop at him makes sense as a DC fan. It's it may be a little bit weird, but I bought it.
And it's also he's also one of the original Flash characters. He appeared in Flash. His first appearance was in Flash.
Right, it was in a real early comic, so a little connection there. All these other things, though, he's not stopping at Blue Beetle or the Atom. I mean, he's seeing these things as he passes by, but he's not at all interacting with any of them, right? Yeah. He only interacts with a few of the people. He does try there's a point where he says, "I'm out of control, pulled to people I know. I try to make sense of it, but now I'm not only lost, my body's breaking down." He does try to talk to a Cyborg, to Dick Grayson. Mm. These are lifetime friends of his. He was in the Teen Titans with them.
He had a connection to them.
Right. And those characters he specifically had a connection to.
And even Captain Boomerang he had a connection to because he's part of the Rogues Gallery.
Right.
So
to me, it makes sense to everyone he talks to. And, much like Countdown to Infinite Crisis, which is another big, giant 80-page book written by Jeff Johns, this has the same sort of setup where you're getting a lot of setup for stories that are coming up. Mm-hmm. And if you don't like that, you shouldn't read superhero comics because that's how this is done. Mm-hmm. This is always the way it is. They're always setting up the next story. There was a couple other points. I definitely saw a lot of people commenting on the button, mm-hmm. On Comedian's button. If you, because I didn't catch it the first time, but if you do go back and look a little closer when Wally's first talking to Batman in the cave, there's a part where he says, "Time rips open as I get sucked back into the Speed Force. Reality from across existence spills out." Mm. And at that point, is that page 8? Yeah. At that point, there's a little thing that says "tink." Mm. And that is the button flying out of the Speed Force.
Well, and the thing is that's something you can easily miss. But when you when you get to when he finds it, it's a natural progression of how he finds it, panel to panel.
Right. I when I saw that, I was like, "What?" And I went back, and I'm like, "Oh, there it is." I looked back at the page, and I flipped back, and I said, "Oh, that's what that was." Mm. Oh, and look, tink! It made a little noise. Okay, it's in the rock, right? Because Batman, because Brock, you were valiantly
I was trying to explain, how to read a comic book to some people.
Yeah, Batman sees the shimmer in the wall.
He's reading the letter from his father,
right?
And he finishes, but notices something. You see the glint of the button.
Yep.
He goes over to it. It's next to a damaged computer, which looked like it was damaged from when Wally came in, zoomed in or whatever.
Well, it was damaged from when he got pulled back out and the Speed Force shot out a reality lightning bolt.
And it had a natural progression to it.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't have a problem with that end part because I was like, no, why is that there? Like,
yeah.
And then, the article that Chris had from, what was it from?
Screen Rant. Yeah.
Like, they said, oh, it happens earlier, and I went back and I was like, oh, yes, it does. Yep. Like, there it is. And, those little things you can miss in a giant book like this.
Well, and I'll again,
I'm being forced to read it within an hour with everybody staring at my fucking goddamn face.
And that's what I said. I will defend you guys because you literally sat down and read the comic and then talked about it. So I understand there isn't a week's worth of kind of mulling this over your head. But, I love you, Bryce, but I know you're immediately going to hate it because it's a DC comic. I mean, that's just the end of it. And Ryan's got his own little opinions on this stuff. So the whole idea of John saying, Watchmen has secretly ruined all superhero comics in the last 30 years, because he even says, like, oh, it's been more than a decade. They've been affecting this for longer. It's the funniest commentary. I mean, I love Watchmen. I love my dark superheroes. Don't get me wrong. But this is a common belief that Watchmen kind of really shifted everything in comics. And so getting, Rebirth coming back to being the DC being much lighter and kind of taking Watchmen as making them sort of the villain, I think that's really funny. The last couple pages, when Batman finds the button and then it just pulls back out and you see the moon and you're like, oh my god, I know exactly where this is going. Because Dr. Manhattan's involved. Yeah.
Well, and the thing is the other thing that I was trying to explain last episode was that you had the 4 chapters and they were titled, Lost, Legacy, Love, and Life. Those were the titles of the chapters, and each character that he goes to in there is connected to that theme in the sense of, Batman is lost because he's the quintessential lost child. Like, his parents were gunned down. I mean, he will he's been lost ever since. You go to Legacy with Johnny Thunder.
It's lost because of him. It's lost because of Johnny Thunder. They've lost to JSA.
Well, no. It's Johnny Thunder's the Legacy chapter. That's when he goes to the Legacy, is when he gets to Johnny.
Oh, it is. Oh, it's the next page.
Then he goes to Linda's the Love.
Well, it's not just him. It's Blue
Beetle. But it's Blue Beetle,
Green Lantern. It's all of them.
Yeah, it's all of them. So you get a lot of this because, I mean, the first chapter we're going over what he lost, right? Like he's lost his life. He's he's been in the Speed Force. Like we haven't had Wally West, and a lot of people wanted Wally West. Yeah. So and then he goes to his wife, and he sees Green Arrow and Black Canary, and he sees all of these relationships that people have wanted to happen, right? Because remember, we had that whole discussion of how DC was anti-marriage. And then the last one is Life, and that's us getting to what's going to come next, right?
Well, John's, again, quintessential comic book, quintessential Perfect Johns, taking something like, sure, I have a cousin named Wally West who's black. That's fine. That, to me, works perfectly. I'm not saying it's stupid that there's a black Wally West, but it was one of those decisions of the New 52, like, why did you do this? Mm-hmm. Like, this doesn't add anything to the character.
The justification that it is his mother's brother's son, and he's named after a
relative.
A relative
sure.
makes perfect sense because people do that all the time,
right? And what's another Flash? I mean, there's like 80 of them, so it doesn't matter if they add another one, right? The whole page.
We need speedsters.
The how could I ever forget you page? The one where Wally and Barry's hugging Wally is just like. I mean, I was like misting my eyes. I was
that was the first time.
I was like waving my eyes.
That was the first time reading a comic. I was like, Wally's not going to come back? What? What? And then it's like, boom, you're like, oh, yes.
Wally is, I mean, by far one of the most important characters that just completely shafted by the New 52. I mean, this comic is, to me, in my mind, possibly the most important DC comic since Crisis on Infinite Earths. This sets a tone going forward. It corrects mistakes that were made. I love Infinite Crisis. I love Final Crisis. I love these big event books when they always do them. But they tend to service we're going to kind of adjust some plots. We're going to change this for continuity and do it. This affects the line for the first time in a core way, and not just a publishing way like New 52, but in a core storytelling mode and in an emotional level, which Crisis on Infinite Earths was kind of the only time that's really happened where they're like, that was the very first time. So it really was emotional. And this gets them back to that same point in a little bit of a different way. But I mean, to me, this is comic book 101. This is what I love about this stuff. It's crazy, it's convoluted, but it's got heart, it's fun, it's funny, it's interesting. You don't know what's going to happen. It leaves on potentially the biggest cliffhanger I have ever seen in a modern comic book. It is Johns nails the cliffhangers. This is a whole other level of cliffhangers on this. Just absolutely incredible. Real quick, I did want to Chris, do you want to? I know you got to jump.
I got time.
You got a little bit of time. There were two real quick points I want to mention. Some of the guys online, I want to mention these guys real quick. Brett on Twitter said, I assume you will point out that Wally did try to reach out to Barry first in Justice League 50. Now, to counter this argument that you have to read Justice League and Superman, look, again, comic books. Hashtag deal with it. This is crossover. This is how comic books work. All this is telling you is that this takes place after two other comic books are released on the same day.
I actually used to like those little crap. I don't know
editors notes.
I actually used to.
You used to see I used to see them
all the time. Like if something
comics.
happened, I go see this issue for this, and I actually really like those because it's like a reference. It's like another little thing for me to discover.
Yeah, this isn't telling you have to read those comics. Those 3 books were all released on the very same day, and they were all available for purchase at midnight. So it's a no for people that wanted to jump into Rebirth to say, hey, maybe you should read these other 2 issues first, because there is some continuity that goes into this. You don't have to, but it does give you a little bit. Since I hadn't read Justice League 50, I looked at that, and absolutely, there's a scene where Flash is running, and Wally West's yellow and red word balloon pops up, and it says Barry, and he's like, what? And then they never go back to it. So, yeah, he actually does reach out to Barry first in Justice League 50. So, he tried. And Shadow Master on Twitter also says, would you remind the others that Thunderbolt, the fifth dimension imp, could have fixed everything, hence Wally's visit. And I mentioned that earlier, and there you go.
Well,
so
I didn't know who he was, so I'm sorry.
No, and that's perfectly fine. Yeah. But this is why this comic to me is like, this is for the people that have been lost because of the New 52.
Yeah, and which is, I was one of them, and I just think it was a little bit too much. I didn't necessarily like the Watchmen integration, and it might be cooler down the line. I'm just saying for that specific issue.
I am so excited.
Really? I don't know. It's rubbing me the wrong way.
Here's the thing. Alan Moore doesn't give a fuck. Yeah. It's a DC comic. Why not? Did you see the comments from Tom Brevoort? He's like, it's genius. Marvel would have done this 20 years ago. They wouldn't have waited 30 years. That was his comment. And I'm like, yeah, you're totally right. They wouldn't have waited 30 years.
Well, but the Marvel restarted it 15 times.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is for me, because when I came back into comics, and, I didn't jump into Green Lantern, and everyone's like, oh, you have to read Rebirth. And I remember reading Green Lantern Rebirth and being like, what the fuck did I just read? But the thing is it dropped those seeds for me to go and find information or read up on who this character was or where this came from or what this story was about.
Yep.
And that desire came out even more when they were doing 52, because they had all of these low-tier characters that were like, here you go. And I was like, holy crap. Like, Booster Gold is awesome. Was it the Elongated Man or Sue Digby and
Sue Dibney? Yeah.
Like
they're all back now too.
Yeah, and they're like,
some of Ralph are back.
I'm like, these are awesome characters, and I want to learn more about this. And then reading this, I was like, it gave me that curiosity. That what is this? Like, Johnny Thunder sounds familiar to me.
Yeah.
Who is this character, and who is Mr. Oz? Right?
Yeah.
Like, who are these characters? And then having the modern kind of exact retelling of a death scene from Watchmen with Rorschach's death scene, and it mirrored perfectly with Pandora's.
Interesting. The death of Pandora, assumingly by Dr. Manhattan, is panel for panel. That page is panel for panel the death of Rorschach in Watchmen. Exact same sequence, same poses and layout and everything like that. Although my good friend Seth, who's been on this podcast once or twice, presented me with an interesting idea. He said, how do we know that Dr. Manhattan actually is killing these people? Because he kills Owlman and Metron in Justice League 50. He kills Pandora. He killed Rorschach in Watchmen. Well, what if he actually aren't?
Well, the thing is
killing these people.
Rorschach and Pandora, I can go. He might not necessarily have done it, but Night Owl, there was definitely blood splatter.
I mean,
on
there's like a splatter, but like you don't know.
Yeah.
All right, you don't know.
Well, I was just gonna say that they I think you meant he kills Rorschach because in the book he's standing right there and is pointing his fingers at him.
But what if he's like teleporting him? Right,
yeah, that's the thing.
That could be the
because there's it's not blood and it's not anything. It's just
I'm pretty sure he kills them, but what if?
Right? Yeah, it was Night Owl and Pandora just poof, and you don't see anything.
He kills Metron too. Metron, both of them are on.
Metron doesn't die though.
No,
They're
both there, but we do not see anything happen to Metron.
There's two blood splatters, one on the ground and one in the chair. Go back and look. Go grab the issue.
It's right there. You're closest to it.
Chris, I don't want to keep you. I think you may have to take off in a bit, but what do you think? I know you said you were a little...
Yeah, so I mean, I prepped for it by reading the Superman 8-parter. Was it
Dark Side War?
No.
Oh,
the Superman ones.
The Final Days of Superman.
Final Days of Superman.
Spoiler.
Wait, what?
The title's like a spoiler.
Oh well, I mean, the first
few days of Superman.
Well, the first few pages of part 1 is like I'm dying, so it's like okay, well, I get it. I read through. I had started reading Dark Side War when issue 40 came out.
Yeah,
a year and a half ago, was it?
Yeah, it feels like forever.
Well, with all the specials and the
it's been a long time.
And I got through. I think I got through part 2, and then I just fell off. And I figured, well, I'll just wait till it finishes and then read the whole thing at once. And then, hearing about Rebirth and how it's all going to tie together, I was like, well, shit, I better read all this stuff. So I read the Superman arc. I read Justice Darkseid War, and then I read Rebirth. This past weekend, so I wanted to come out to the midnight thing, but I was so tired after work, I was like, I'm just gonna go home.
Sure.
So I read it the first time, and I got, I kind of understood most of it. I like the story, but again, there's a whole bunch of question marks, like the old dude at the rest home or wherever he is. I had no idea who Wally West was. I mean, I know him from the TV show, but I know it's not an exact parallel. Had no idea he was a pivotal character that was just left out of the New 52. A bunch of other things. So the first thing I did after finishing it was Google Rebirth DC, like, what? and one of the first few links was the Screen Rant article. It was 20 weird things explained about Rebirth. And I read through it, and I was like, okay, all right, this all makes sense. Like, and, they explain things like who this old dude was. And he's one of the founding members of the Justice Society, which you've said Jeff Johns has a massive boner for.
Yeah.
So it's like, all right, that makes sense. He's introducing this guy because he wants to bring the series back, and somehow he has this genie, and they talk about all this stuff. And so then I read it a second time, and I'm like, yes, okay, I understand how all this works, and it makes sense, and it was enjoyable. So, I liked it the first read through. Didn't understand half of it, but I'm like, that's okay because
you were curious.
Yeah, curious enough to go seeds. Google it. But that's how most of that's how all the New 52 was for me, because that's when I started coming into the shop, was about 6 months before New 52, and I wasn't buying any DC stuff except for Batman. In fact, I bought Green Lantern Rebirth, I think, after the New 52, because everyone in the shop talked about it. And I bought trade after trade after trade until...
And Rebirth confused the shit out of you.
Yeah, it was confusing because I had no idea of the past history of Green Lantern.
Yeah.
So,
but that's what John does so well, is he introduces all the weird stuff and then fixes it and then gives you a twist at the end of, and here's where we go next, right?
Yeah, and so, I mean, Green Lantern Rebirth was like, all right, so there's this guy who is evil and now he's not evil or whatever. And then the story was just, his story from number 1 was excellent. I loved the John's run on Green Lantern.
Yeah.
And so, I was like, okay, he's writing. I liked him writing Justice League and Aquaman at the beginning. Did he write any of Superman in the
Just
52?
the later.
Johns wrote the horrific John Romita Jr. art.
Oh yeah, that's right. I didn't read any of those.
What was that guy's name?
Ulysses, yeah.
And that's where Mr. Oz is?
Yeah, that's where it comes from. So,
Mr. Oz, another character, which when he first popped up, I was like, Spectre? Because I know Spectre from Green Lantern Rebirth. So I was like, I liked it, didn't understand it, looked it up, reread it. Okay, it kind of makes sense. So, like,
did you reread Watchmen?
Well, I reread the Rorschach scenes before we started recording to see how it compared to Pandora's death scenes. So.
Yeah, it's exactly the same.
And then before Ryan mentioned that the text bubbles at the very end is Adrian or Ozymandias talking to Manhattan, and I read that and I was like, holy shit, it is.
And it's the Watchmen font and everything. Yeah,
and
dead on.
And I didn't listen to the podcast last week until after reading this issue, so I had no idea what was going on.
I apologize already. I'm sorry.
It's entertainment.
That's the nice way of saying it. Sucks.
I had no idea what to expect. I mean, I wasn't spoiled by anything, so it was really exciting to get to the end and be like, "Whoa, cool Watchmen stuff!" Because again, that's another comic I like. And rereading it, I'm like, how could you not tell what it was because the clock, the watch at the very beginning, it's the Roman numerals.
The 9-panel. It's
the Roman numerals from Watchmen. How could anyone? But again, it's like how could you miss the lightning bolt with the button right on page 8 because you're not looking for it. So
well, and I mean, a lot of people don't realize that we do associate font styles and certain coloring scheme for text boxes and stuff to specific titles.
Oh, exactly. Oh, obviously. Yeah,
like
you have
it's,
to.
I mean, I opened it up and I'm like, Watchmen. Like, it boom. It was like...
Well, and the fact that it's a clock and, talking about time and stuff like that, it's like, why didn't I notice that?
Yeah.
When you see like 16 panels on one page, you're like, oh, Bendis is writing this book and it's just going to be a talking head for a couple pages.
Brian, you've been quiet. Give everyone their moment.
Well, sure. I don't want to step on people's lines.
Yeah, no.
Whose line is it anyway?
You've been not the biggest modern comic reader in the last, I'd say, year and a half.
I've kind of limited myself to certain titles.
Yeah, you keep up on a few things, but I know you're not getting a ton of DC books, but I know you...
Yeah,
you were excited for this?
Yeah, I have a perspective on it from that, since I haven't been reading a lot of the new 52 stuff. I think Ryan and Chris covered it pretty well. In fact, Ryan, you covered it so well, you might as well just drop the mic, turn off the thing, and we can all go home. But
because I am neck deep in this stuff.
Yeah.
I'm more than neck deep in this stuff from someone who doesn't know a lot of what's going on. And Chris has read a decent amount, but you really haven't read a lot of the last couple of years' worth.
So you've read a lot of older DC, right?
Yeah, well, I'm more of a Marvel guy, so
okay.
I've got more knowledge of the Marvel universe. So I can speak to that aspect of like, okay, let's say you're not that familiar with the New 52. When the New 52 came out, I read a number of titles, stayed with some of them. The only title I stayed with consistently was Wonder Woman, which I thought was very well done and was different. And some of the titles just kind of fell back to old habits, so to speak. So I didn't really follow them. But I don't have a lot of knowledge coming to this book, and based upon what's been going on in the New 52 and based upon some of the old characters. But my 2 cents on the book, with that in mind, coming to the book, I did not read Justice League or Superman, the 2 titles that theoretically you're supposed to read. I don't think it really mattered for me. I don't think it was sometimes like, oh, read this or read that. It's like, yeah, I don't think you really have to. I've always gone round and round with people on this. I especially in the age of the internet, if you don't know something, it's very easy to look it up. Yeah. So in a sense, I read the book in a way cold. And yeah, like Chris, there's some things I didn't get or didn't understand, but overall, I thought like, oh, I see what they're doing. I like the idea that they didn't just dump on the New 52. That's part of your storyline. It just didn't go away. It wasn't like somebody woke up from a shower one day and just said, hey, I had this weird dream. And
they could have done that too.
Yeah,
right?
They absolutely could have done that. Yeah, and they didn't. So I thought, not only are you protecting the fans who came into the New 52, but you're protecting the fans who are old school fans prior to that. And I thought Johns did a good job on all of that. I look at the book. Some people want to think, oh, this book's going to be some type of magnificent home run hit. I think of the book more as just a transitional book. It's there to pay homage to the New 52, to let fans know we're kind of going back to some other things. And hey, here's some new exciting things that maybe you did not foresee. And in that sense, the book holds a lot of promise for what's to come. The idea of Dr. Manhattan being in the same universe as Superman, I think, is kind of exciting. And there's just a lot of things that happen in the book that are setups, as it should be, as a transitional book should be. In some ways, people think, it should be a pilot book. It should be explaining everything and setting it up for the new universe. I don't think that was the goal of Jeff Johns. I think Ryan covered that pretty well. So I think as someone who hasn't followed the New 52, who doesn't know a lot of the characters per se, I found it an interesting read. I liked it. I liked where they're going to go. There's a level of excitement, which I think the book is supposed to do, generate excitement. And I think if you're a casual fan or a fan who hasn't been following these things, I think you can jump into the book and get what you need to know, and use the internet if you have to fill in the blanks. So yeah, I definitely liked it, and I'm excited for. Again, I'm more of a Marvel guy, but I'm excited for what DC is going to be doing here in the near future.
Another drop the mic moment.
Well, the sad part is, isn't it? I think that not a lot of people have addressed this. Is this is the last Johns we're going to get for a while?
Yeah, I mean, he co-wrote the Green Lantern Rebirth that does come out this week, but well, this will be the last thing he's writing until DC vs. Watchmen, which will probably come out in a year and a half or something, right?
That's true. I was looking at the lineup. The Rebirth lineups, and I was looking at the Wikipedia entry, and they've got all the titles and the authors, and I noticed Johns wasn't on any of those, and I was like, oh man.
Well, actually,
we don't get a Johns book. Like, this is the last thing for a while. Like, I mean, he's going over into the movie aspect of it.
Well, this is a great as a segue as we possibly could have, because we are getting Jeff Johns, and I. This computer is on its last legs here. I'm trying to look this up, and the entire thing just crashed on me.
I told you, it's been 4 weeks. I forgot to bring my laptop.
While you look it up, I'm going to add to last week. I think part of me, take away the Watchmen thing, not counting the Watchmen thing, I slightly found the book oddly predictable, and I think maybe that's what took me away from the, this is going to be the blow me away kind of book, because I kind of figured Johns is going to figure out a way to not only make the new stuff stick, but also bring in the old stuff. I'm like, yep, that's exactly what I expected. Again, not counting the Watchmen stuff, I'm like, this is what I expected out of the book, and I think maybe that took a little bit of the awe away, maybe. Yeah. And I really am looking forward to what comes out of this book. And I said that last week too. I was like, even though I'm not blown away by this specific book, I'm really, really looking forward to all the things that are coming out of it.
I think that's important, because it's a transitional book.
Yeah.
Right. So sometimes people want someone to hit the home run, and it must be the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Yeah.
But that's not the design of this book.
Yeah, and when you take that away, then maybe my anticipation of the book was different. And on the other hand, I was never a big Final Crisis guy. I was never a Infinite Crisis. I like the little street heroes that go beat up, or little teenagers that team up and look up to the gods or the or the big guys. So this is not necessarily the book that's for me. Yeah, that's just to add to it. Yeah.
Well, I did want to say, I didn't say this is the greatest comic I've ever read. I've read better Jeff Johns comics. I've read better Jeff Johns events, right? I think this book is important, though, in what it does.
Yeah, and it accomplishes what it wants to accomplish.
Right, which is more important than necessarily, I think, being a good single-issue read, because it is a big book with a lot of character and
I love Wally being back. I mean, these are the characters I loved, right?
Yeah.
So I'm very excited for this book. It's just this book itself didn't blow me away necessarily.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's not something that you can read. It's not a complete story. It's the back half of one story and the first part of another of 30 other stories, right?
So, like Brian said, it's the transition book.
Yeah,
this is transitioning us from New 52 to Rebirth.
And what it does, it does what it sets out to do, I believe, very well. But you're talking about why we're not getting more Jeff Johns comics. It's because
congratulations are in order.
Yeah, shortly after there was a major managerial shakeup at Warner Brothers, Jeff Johns and Warner Executive Vice President John Berg are now in charge of DC Films, much the way that Marvel had Marvel Studios. There is now a organization within Warner Brothers headed up by Jeff Johns, specifically to deal with all the upcoming movie properties.
Thank God.
This is after the tepid...
It's not a thank God. It's going to be a good one for Jeff Johns, because all the stuff that's been already set up that he has to figure out how to manipulate.
He has to rebirth the DC movie universe.
That's 100% true.
Well, the funny thing is,
I wish
I read this book before BVS, because then I would have been so excited about the Wally scene in the movie. Actually, it's Barry.
Yeah.
But
this is what happens in there.
I would have been really excited. I've been telling everybody, this is what it's about. You don't know because you don't read comic books, you silly man.
It's possible. But yeah, so they are, he said he's not going to go out and bash Superman or Batman v Superman or anything like that. However, the tepid, good box office, but not what it should have been, and the very tepid response to Batman v Superman. Warner Brothers had to do something, and giving it to Johns is,
well, it's funny because Johns is kind of coming full circle because he started out.
He came from movies, right?
In movies, like he was working with Donner,
Richard Donner,
and stuff, and then he went out and went into comic books, and then now he's coming back into film.
Yep. He is quoted as saying that he's hoping to bring hope and optimism
Which is exactly what I was missing from Superman and BVS.
To the DC movies. So, which is what he's bringing to Rebirth as well. Again, getting away from the dark, grim, gritty. You can have Batman be dark, right? But you want some good stuff too. And this was my hope with Batman v Superman. I said, my feeling there is that they have a great opportunity. In the comic books, when Superman dies, you have the world mourns him because they know what they lost. In the movies, they don't really know what they've lost. And so they mourn him at the end of like, oh my God, now we realize that we've lost Superman. So my hope is they have the real easy potential now to bring him back and he can be
rebirthed.
Rebirthed, exactly. And the Superman that we know and want, right?
Hopefully. I still think
so. I have a question. Maybe you guys can answer this. Part of the Screen Rant article mentioned this as well, and then other stuff that I've read. But a lot of stuff is mentioned about Convergence. That was only last year, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you think a year ago they were planning this out?
A year and a half ago. No. I think Convergence was an idea where they're like, oh, we're going to fix some of the continuity stuff. We're going to bring back the multiverse. But the end of Convergence, we talked about it when this came out, it didn't do anything. It said we're going to bring back the multiverse, and Earth 1 is now the New 52 universe, and everything's been changed. It's like, well, you didn't really fix anything. Like, it's the same problem. Nothing changed.
Yeah, and the thing was, they were bringing back classic, characters and things that people missed from the New 52 in it.
But not really.
But
within the context
of Convergence. But I think what they got out of it was that Superman, Lois and Clark.
That's the only book, right?
That was. They were like, wait a second, we can make this work because they pulled them from Convergence and put them
in Salinas.
So and that book has been amazing. It was the only Superman book you should have been reading at the time because the rest of Superman was just I mean, The Final Days of Superman was a good story. I enjoyed it. But before that was the only Superman title that I was enjoying was, this was Superman married to Lois with a kid.
And that's the pre-New 52.
Pre-Flashpoint.
Yeah.
Yeah, pre-Flashpoint. Yeah, and that's as I remember, that's what the Screen Rant article was talking about in regards to the Superman this is the guy from Convergence. This is the pre-Flashpoint Superman,
right?
Who's just sort of been chilling in Salinas. And now that New 52 Superman is dead, he's on Earth Prime or whatever you're going to call it, and he can now be, Superman again.
Yeah.
So, which is like, okay, yeah, I get, it all makes comic book sense, but I'm always curious how
comic
far
books make sense.
Well,
we have the potential.
Some context. How far? So I'm always curious. How far ahead did they plan these out, or did Convergence happen? And Johns was like, "Holy shit! Hey, this guy's here, and this is how I'm going to work." I
think that's how they did it because you have the chance now where Superman has aged those 10 years, right? We now have the older Superman who knows what's going on, right? And maybe even more than 10 years. So the question is, at the end of this, do they actually get those 10 years back and the full kind of history comes back?
Now that's the story that has me tingling.
Yeah.
Right? It's just, it wasn't Rebirth. It's what's coming.
Do we get there? Yeah. It's possible they could be like, well, we lost those 10 years, but now we're going to rebuild it again, right?
And I think part of it is especially now with the readership that we have, the age range for most comic book readers now are people that are married and have kids. And,
a lot of them are.
You kind of see your heroes going through the same things that you're going through as now an adult in, like Superman has to raise a super kid.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Batman has to raise...
I'm so looking forward to Super Sons. Oh, my God.
And you have...
It's Damian Wayne and
you
Jonathan.
You have Batman having to raise an asshole, right? Yeah. And it's like, you're like, this is what it is, right? This is where we're at in our lives.
Well, if Damian is 13 years old, right, this is the problem of Batman has to be... I mean, he could have hooked up with Talia when he was 25, so Batman's 38 at a minimum, meaning Robin existed when Damian by giving Damian an age, because they gave him like a 13th birthday cake in this, right? I believe it was 13.
Out the candles and curtains.
Yeah. That then gives them a minimum of 14 to 15 years where he's been Batman. And that there's also been a Robin, meaning Dick Grayson now has this legacy, potentially this legacy back, because it makes no sense if he's 13 years old. How could he have been Batman for less time than that, right? So I feel like the fix is already kind of being applied. We're already getting some of that in here, and that this 10-year history will. I mean, Marvel has always kind of done this. The Fantastic Four went to the moon, or tried to go to the moon 10 years ago, right? I mean, it might change, but it's always roughly been like this 10-year time period. They stretch it, they pull it back, but it's roughly that 10 years.
You're moving your hands like you're Mr. Fantastic.
The New 52 saying 5 years is bullshit. 15 years makes sense, right? I mean, it works.
15, it's
and that makes Batman perfect age for that. That puts Batman just under 40. It gives him enough time to have met Talia.
It's like that quarterback in his prime, right?
So I think it's a good. My hope is it happens.
For me, it's 52 was a little bit of taint. It happened. Now we're fixing it. Now we can move on. So that's all it is for me.
And I don't hold anything against the New 52 because there's some...
we got the best Wonder Woman in a long, long time.
We got the best Batman. I mean, I love the Morrison Batman stuff, but Snyder and Capullo hit on something that no one has been able to touch in
we've
years.
We've gotten solid...
Justice League has been
Justice
phenomenal.
League has been great. We got a solid Animal Man.
Animal Man and Swamp Thing for a few years.
Flash has been fairly solid. Aquaman actually has a 50-issue run that's not garbage.
They just destroyed every single book and person I liked in the process.
Grayson's a good book.
Well, I like Grayson. I like Grayson, but besides that, they destroyed every book I liked.
They've done some really, really good stuff in the New 52. I think it's just the stuff that they neglected or didn't include was what kind of made the New 52 it didn't meet as many expectations as it could have.
Yeah. Well, let's we're gonna read a few questions here. I got a 1.5 billion questions. A lot of them about Captain America. We'll talk about that next week.
I got something to say about that shit.
But the very first question is this problematic cartoon. Always hits up on Twitter. He says, Rebirth was actually great, but Barry's costume is a bigger affront than Hydra Cap. I actually really kind of hate Barry's new costume. I don't know if you guys have seen it. It's like the all red. I kind of don't like it, but whatever.
They took the armor look out of it, and it made the lightning bolts they always go in the same spot.
I'm
sorry.
Like it.
Hold on. He must actually mean Wally's. I'm sorry. That's my mistake.
Well,
he
Wally's
says Barry.
is the classic one.
No. The red
one.
The red.
See, that one doesn't. Suit. I don't mind too much because Wally was Flash for so long. It only makes sense to merge the two costumes.
Are you talking about this one?
No.
The one in the back in the preview.
In the way back. It's kind of a real ugly costume. Bottom right.
It's basically a Flash costume with hair.
Yeah, I kind of hate it.
Oh, yeah. For the new Titans book?
Yeah, I kind of hate it.
Yeah, it's...
I'm not surprised if they're going to have just two Flash-looking Flash running around with one being Wally and one being Barry.
Yeah. That's because Black Wally takes that costume.
Well, right. So
he's like...
They should call him...
The bottom left, it's the bottom right is Wally.
They should call him Walter, but that would be another problem because there is a Walter West who's like the alternate reality evil version. I don't know. They gotta figure something out, so... they gotta figure something out.
Here I got the fix. Wally West is the original. Wally West is the new one.
Is a robot.
This is from Steven on Twitter. He says, suggested pre-Rebirth reading for someone who hasn't been in the DC since Death of Superman.
Jeff Johns Green Lantern.
Well, he actually says outside of Jeff Johns Green Lantern, which he has read.
Jeff Johns Flash, Jeff Johns...
I mean, I think if you want to go into Rebirth, you should read Justice League. His Justice League run
the Justice
ties
League
in
run.
a little bit. And the Last Days of Superman, which is the arc going right into Rebirth.
Flashpoint would probably be...
A Flashpoint would be a good...
The main series is fine. You don't need to read on any...
Well, because the whole letter part, all the Batman
The
stuff
letter
in this...
part was really freaking cool.
That's one of my favorite parts of Flashpoint.
Yeah. I mean, the major events along the way.
Yeah.
I mean, if he hasn't been in since Death of Superman...
No Man's Land.
Yeah,
Ooh,
no,
pardon me.
go away.
Stefano's got a few here. He says, following the New 52 Pandora, how confident are you in Rebirth's 2-year arc with Dr. Manhattan, assuming it's him? I mean, that's what words come down from DC, that this kind of got like 2-year planned here on this path of what they're doing with the Watchmen stuff and kind of the Rebirth.
I think
I have to assume that's going to happen.
the thing is like, I want them to. I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to find the right amount of time to let books grow and tell a good story.
I really hope so.
Right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, we've gotten 52. Seems like a decent number, right?
Yeah.
Marvel's over here preaching. They're like TV shows. Do it every year. Renumber, and it's like. No, that's way you cannot do.
Brian, because I know you're a fan of you hate the relaunches. You are aware
Well, I
that
hate the multiple relaunches.
Right.
It's annoying.
Action and Detective are returning to their original numbering.
Yes.
You aware of that?
Yes, I am.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
Which is cool. They should never have left that original numbering. They're the two books that should have stayed the same in the New 52, in my mind.
They're getting close to 1,000 for Action
Yeah.
Comics. That's important.
Well, and the thing is
People foresaw that, though.
having that good period of time, right? 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, whatever. Give them a good amount of time to tell a story. Like we always complain at everything's an ongoing until it's canceled.
Yeah.
Right? Give it the 12 issues. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, fans demanded so much last year that Omega Men stay around.
Yeah. Yep.
That
They finished it off.
We finished it off.
Yep.
And that's the thing is you have to let some of these books mature and give it time to get an audience sometimes and give it time to grow. And if it doesn't,
Well, there's no.
Do you want to bet that Jeff Johns kind of outlined the next 2 years so that he can leave it be, and then he does his movies, and then after 2 years he comes back and writes what's next?
Johns is involved. So Johns is doing a weekly editorial meeting with all creatives. All creatives every week to make sure they're on his plan going forward. And
look at Johns Nightwing in season 2 of Young Justice, where he's controlling multiple teams. At that point.
Well, he's there with the writers and some of the artists as he's executive producing the entire line. So he's not specifically writing something, but his touch is in every single comic, which
I'm looking forward to that.
I'm actually okay with that. If we don't get a comic written by him, but he is
kind of executive producing.
He is producing the entire line.
It's what we got from Batman for the past few years, where Snyder was kind of the head for
overseeing the other stuff.
Batman Eternal, Batman and Robin Eternal. He was overseeing all these things, and they were really, really good.
Man, long were the days where we could call up Jeff Johns going, hey, man, why don't you come do a signing? Long were the days of that.
Well, as Ryan knows, I've said this before, and I'm saying this as a Marvel guy, I've always said that DC wants you to read their books. Marvel wants you to buy their books.
Yeah.
And to me, that's why DC is kind of interesting in what they've been doing the last few years.
$2.99. Remember, all the books are $2.99 going forward.
Well, it's funny. Everyone's like $2.99, but they're double shipping. I'm like, yeah, but you're still getting more book for whatever because you're spending $6 on one title and still getting more pages than you would paying $4 or $5.
But it is the same amount of titles at the end. I mean, when the Young Animal stuff, and there's the Commodity Challenge, and there's other books coming out, but the main titles are going to be exactly the same number of comics as Pre-New 52. It's just you're not buying. There's a handful of duds that you're not going to buy. You're just buying Action Comics twice a month.
My only worry is that besides Jeff Johns, who am I excited about? Like Tom King, but other than that, like,
I'm excited for Tomasi on Superman.
Yeah, but you know what I mean, though? I'm a little worried that, with the years we've gone by, that, DC knows who the guy is, and that's the only guy, really.
Well, look at Marvel, right?
And Marvel's a bloody mess,
Marvel's got Bendis and kind of no one else.
Yeah,
and
Bendis, I still like him, but...
Where's Snyder going?
Yeah.
Huh?
Where's Snyder going?
He's doing All-Star Batman.
Oh, that's
He's
right.
not going anywhere.
But you know what I mean, though? I'm a little worried that after all these years, that, the name that I'm still excited about is Jeff Johns. After all these years, that there's, no other name. Maybe Tom King.
Well, Marvel and DC have done such a fabulous job of just pissing off every creator and Image just come in and said, look, we'll give you 100% of the profits.
No, they say, we'll give you 98% of the profits. We need a little bit to make sure we do this.
I think they get like 10% or something like that. I don't know what their cut is, but they make so much money on there. As a creator, I understand why they go to Image, right? I totally get it. But like, for some of these guys, if this is what you want, if you want to play in the sandbox, hopefully DC now is at a point where it's such a more opening, accessible. My hope is John's dominance allows him to control any sort of junior editor that wants to fire, because she walked. So Gail Simone's been very upfront about this recently, because she said she basically walked away from DC entirely, and that's unfortunate.
Yeah,
but she walked off Batgirl.
You can tell how her Secret Six ended. Ooh.
Yeah, I mean, she's not working for Marvel or DC at this point, so she's doing,
which is a shame,
purely independent stuff, right? But sure, I mean, whatever you guys want to do. Like, I don't know if you heard, Brubaker was getting death threats and people yelling at him over the Captain America thing. He hasn't written Captain America in 5 years.
Brubaker did?
Brubaker was getting shit about the Captain America #1.
This one?
Yeah, that just came out.
The one written by Nick Spencer, the guy that writes Ant-Man.
And he's like,
other Cap book.
Someone should get some shit, but not him.
Yeah, well, yeah. Nick Spencer, I mean, whatever, you like it or not, but like, he's like, this is kind of why I've stopped writing for Marvel and DC. It's like, you're in this crazy world, and he's like, I don't want to be a part of it. He's like,
I'm hoping things will change, right? Rucka back being on Wonder Woman again. So I'm really hoping for a little bit of turnaround, because there was a time where I was reading based on creators as opposed to characters. So before I was characters, then I started switching to creators more. Yeah. And then the whole thing became a giant mess for me. So I'm hoping it kind of gets streamlined, goes back to basics.
Yeah, but we could have the chance of now a bunch of new creating,
which is fine. Yeah.
Tom King is the perfect example of, I don't need 80 creators I love.
Yep.
Tom King's there, and he's incredible, and I'm so looking forward to his Batman run so much. I'm so excited.
I preferred he stayed on Nightwing, but
I'm sure Nightwing will be involved. So.
Yeah. That's an interesting point that you make, Toby, because when I first started reading comics back in the day, I mean, it was always about characters.
Well, no one knew.
Yeah. And I bought because of characters. Yeah. I mean, I attest.
Totally character-driven. It wasn't about art. I mean, there were artists that you would like, there were writers that you would like, but it was always the character. The character was front and center.
It wasn't even until like the very late 70s, early 80s that even anyone cared. I mean, Claremont and Wolfman and Perez on Titans were kind of like the first time where people were like, oh, hey, these creators are as big as the characters, right? Yeah. I mean, guys like John Byrne and Frank Miller, and I mean, they started to become these superstars. I mean, people do Stan Lee, but that was it, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there were people that were well known back in the day, but I would say somewhere in the 80s is when the creators really started getting their due.
Right. And that's when the big independent boom happened, and Vertigo and all this stuff, so that makes sense. Stefano asked another question. He says, do you think Rebirth's Dr. Manhattan took any inspiration or will tie in with Grant Morrison's multiversity? And there would be no greater joy than a Jeff Johns, Grant Morrison, DC verse Watchmen comic that ends with the multiversity Justice League coming to save them at the very end of the book. I would evaporate like I was poofed by Dr. Manhattan. I would just like turn the page and be like, my body would just implode.
Great.
With happiness.
I'd have to call Marshall and say, store's ours now. We got to take care of Leanne.
Yeah. It would be. I would love it.
Then it really would turn into Game of Thrones. I'd pay to see that.
Yeah. It would be the greatest thing ever. Let's see. A lot of replies from Bryce here.
Well, Morrison and Johns did the 52 stuff. Mm-hmm. That was really good.
Yep. This is from Cisco. He says, any chance that DC starts launching mini events with 80-page giant annually a la Rebirth, or is it too much of a loss leader? Too much of a loss leader to do often, but when they did the $1 Countdown to Infinite Crisis and now this one, they will be remembered as some of the greatest.
I think I like
events.
those. I like those books. They're this big meaty thing that gets you into what's going on.
Yeah.
Right. Like like the Countdown to Crisis book. Like it was this giant thing that was just you read it and you were like, holy crap! I want to know what happens next. And that's why Infinite Crisis was so amazing. You had all of this stuff just. It was there.
Yeah.
So,
Are the annuals oversized at all?
the annuals
Annuals are always double-sized, yeah.
Yeah, they're oversized. But annuals for DC have kind of the Batman ones tend to tell you an extra story or story about another character. The other ones it can vary. Oh, it's some offshoot one story we're telling you, or it's connected to this and it's tying. It's like part whatever the final part of the story. So, I mean, I don't mind annuals as long as they kind of fit fit within what's being told at the time.
They tend to be pretty important, like for DC at least, starts or ends of story arcs. So.
And Ryan, isn't it true that the second printing of Rebirth is going to be $5.99?
It's going to be
right?
$5.99 prestige format, so it's going to have like a square bound spine and everything like that. Yeah.
So we still have some in the store for $2.99 for those who are
cover
listening
too.
out there. Yeah.
Or
not many.
Alternative.
No, not
cover.
many.
Yeah.
So come on down.
Not many.
Cisco's got another question. He says, who do you think Mr. Oz has in captivity per John's Superman runs? My fingers are crossed for Connor Kent. I have no idea. That was one of those kind of weird mysteries that I just assumed would never be resolved until Rebirth, when I'm like, oh, hey, it's Oz. Okay, and then I have no idea. But yeah, no clue.
Well, Oz is the first time he's named is in this. In the Superman stuff, in
people
the
said that.
Men of Tomorrow.
Do they not name him?
They don't name him. He just stands there and talks like, "You can do it, Clark. I believe in you. You were trained." And it's so easy to miss those scenes in that Superman run, because the one thing that's great about Johns is he tells a great story. But Johns needs the support of an amazing artist to get those little tiny details, to get you...
I have to go back and reread that run, because I remember there being someone in captivity, and then when the book ended, it just kind of out of my brain. Yeah.
It's rather ironic, because that's kind of what Ryan said to me when he was training me. You can do this. I believe in you. You can do this.
You did a fantastic job.
So are you saying that Ryan is Mr. Oz?
And you're Superman?
No spoilers.
We all did a fantastic job this podcast.
Thank you.
We're going to go ahead.
We're getting a dinner out of this, right? If I remember correctly.
I owe you all dinner for working, by the way, too.
Yeah.
So we'll do that sometime the next week or never.
I hope you all like Taco Bell.
I love Taco Bell.
I like vegan food.
I don't think I heard my never part, but yeah. Any last thoughts, comments, Rebirth? Sorry for anyone listening to this podcast that was hoping to hear us talk about something new than a Rebirth, but this book deserves 2 episodes. So,
well, it deserves a Rebirth episode.
Yeah, it does. It does.
A Rebirth podcast.
All right. Well, we got to thank a bunch of people here from Patreon. Sorry for missing last week. I actually meant to give that to Ryan beforehand. But we actually ended up with 5 Tuesdays this month, so it all works out. Albert Soy, he's got his app on iTunes called Plant Everywhere. Go check that out. He needs to buy more hot toys, so
I think we attempted it, by the way, last week, just horribly.
yeah, you got a few of them. Jody Lawson, Canon, the Triad Comics Anthology at triadcomicstudio.com. Go pick up some books from him. John Nesmith, go listen to his podcast, drinkingwithbatman.libsyn.com. I'm sure he'll tell you all about this button he found stuck in his wall with a bunch of blood on it.
But I'll tell you drunk.
He will. Yeah. Nerded Up on YouTube. YouTube.com/nerdeduptv. That's Peter Blanco's video series that he works on. I believe his brother, he said. So check that out. Of course, Toby's favorite podcast of all time.
No pants.
Julian Titus's Nerds Without Pants podcast at pixeldick.com.
Are we going to have him back on?
Yeah.
You better not wear pants next time. I was very disappointed.
Because I was gone.
Please don't have him stand up on the video.
Yeah. Because I was gone, I told him June, July, like, we'll definitely have him back on. We got to schedule a date, so I got to get it back on. Joshua Redding, he has a couple podcasts, Tangent Break. He has one podcast called Tangent Break. He's got a couple books on Amazon, Twilight of Ages and Dawn of Darkness. Make sure you pick those up. Mario Miranda, the Mild Fuzz Podcast Network, mildfuzz.org, and Mild Fuzz on YouTube.
What if you wanted Hot Fuzz?
Lots of, I think they'd sue you if you called it that. Lots of good podcasts on there. Manoa Place, Sam Che, Robert Danum, and Scott Dryman. They have nothing to pimp. They just love...
Come on, guys, give us something to pimp.
They just love giving us money, and I'm okay with that.
We appreciate that.
We do. We appreciate everyone. Patreon.com/Comic Conspiracy. You have 1 day left. If you're listening to this, it may be too late. But if you want to get in that June Patreon pimpage or throw us some money for talking about Rebirth for 3.5 hours between the two episodes, you can.
Shit, we've been talking 3.5 hours.
Patreon.com/Comic Conspiracy. All the previous episodes are up at geekbox.net, iTunes, and the Comic Conspiracy Podcast.com. Go on there and download them all and listen to them all again if you want to for some reason. Forums at geekbox.net and the Geekbox and Comic Conspiracy Facebook group. That's where you can go talk to all our great readers. Lots of Rebirth discussion on there. If you want to buy Rebirth digitally, digital.comicsconspiracy.biz.
Was it easy to do?
It was, yeah. It was. Well, I didn't install the app. I did it off the just the web browser, which is not the best.
Okay.
But it worked.
Was it easier than your honey fun thing for your wedding?
You were like one of two people that had problems with it, so I don't know what was going on. Conspirator Brock, that's Brock's blog and video pull list. Go check that out. Infinite Longbox podcast. Well, more. Maybe not anymore. I guess as Wanderers in the Fourth Dimension now is the only podcast that Charlie's really doing. I don't know.
He might do a Rebirth special.
Are they going to do another Infinite Longbox? Yeah, they
might do it. I think because he can say his piece on here. He's going to do his own.
Yeah. Charlie, he's going to be back. He's been having some stuff, work and some personal stuff going on, but he will be back soon. Etsy.com/shop/Leanne Hill Art. We're back from our honeymoon, so now she can do more drawings for you. Go on there and buy some stuff from her.
Make her work, people.
Ryan Higgins Ryan, that's me. I'm on Twitter. Brock is Brock Sager. Bryce Larson is Larson Bryce. Toby's Toby XI. Charlie's Insane Chaos.
People for once.
Yeah,
I'm doing backlog. I figure I got 20 minutes. I'm gonna go back and answer those, and I answer some current ones. Couple nights later, I'll do another couple of old ones, couple of new ones. So
You've been on.
I'm working on it.
You've been on a lot. Chris is Darth Chris 4. Brian, what's your Twitter handle? Huh?
Don't have one.
What's your Snapchat handle? What's
have one.
Jeez, if you had Snapchat.
What's your LinkedIn account?
Don't have one.
I would have been on the floor if you had Snapchat.
Are you on Tinder?
What's your Grindr account name?
Don't have one.
Put that up there?
Tinder, maybe?
JDate?
No. As Ryan knows, technology is of the devil, and the internet was his greatest creation.
I actually do very much enjoy calling Brian because he's very old school. I feel like I'm traveling back in time.
I'm old school, baby, all the way.
I'm calling him on his home phone. He had the answer machine. I knew it. If I just talk long enough, he's going to pick up the phone, and that's totally what
always
happened.
Always screen calls.
Geekbox Comedy Button, Good Job Brian, All Talk Podcast, Manga Machinations, bunch of cool little podcasts on our network. Make sure you check those out. Always worth listening to.
And the Rebirth first 4 Rebirth issues are out.
Yep, they are out this week. Pick them up. We just finished up our pre-orders, so pre-orders are done for Rebirth Month 1. But if you would like to get on Month 2... you can pick them up at comicsconspiracy.biz. Mm-hmm. And Civil War 2 comes out this week, too, so those are getting done. But Month 2 Civil War, you can grab that on
Civil War 2 number 1.
Civil War 2 number 1, yes.
Yeah, that's not confusing at all.
Yeah, that's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, check out the pre-orders. There are a lot of great pre-orders up that you have for stuff that's coming out. Like the people that got those Scooby-Doo
those
sets
out
for number 1, they scored because those things went...
Everyone blew out of Scooby-Doo so fast. Yeah. And June pre-orders are up right now for Marvel and DC for Rebirth and for Civil War. The July stuff I'll hopefully try to put up this weekend along with some other stuff. So because last month a little quiet for pre-orders, but we'll get this up. Thank you guys for listening. We'll be back next week for something other than Rebirth.
Maybe some TV stuff.
X-Men
TV,
Apocalypse.
X-Men Apocalypse we're saving for when Bryce comes back. Hopefully some TV talk and maybe some Cap #1 and some other stuff. All right, we'll talk to you next.
Hold the door.